In 550 BCE, the Spartans were deadlocked in battle with the city of Arcadian Tegea. In an attempt to break the stalemate, the Spartans turned to the Oracle of Delphi. The priestess stated that victory would only be had when the bones of Orestes were returned to Sparta. Orestes is a mythological Greek who was said to have died from a snakebite in Arcadia. A Spartan cavalryman discovered bones in Arcadia, which he claimed were those of Orestes. When returned to Sparta and assembled, these bones were said to have produced a man about 3 meters tall. Because Sparta went on to win their war, an ancient bone rush ensued where every city-state scrambled to find the bones of their own heroes, kings, and giants. In a previous video exploring possible memories of Denisovans in indigenous myths, I got some feedback wondering if the Greek and Roman mythology on titans and giants might be a memory of ancient encounters with extinct hominin species. I want to briefly explore this idea. The great thing about exploring history versus prehistory is the fact that written records exist in history. For instance, a 2nd century Greek geographer wrote about the arguments of locals when they found very large bones. When a river was diverted near the Asia Minor city of Antioch, workers found a skeleton 11 cubits long or 5 meters long in the exposed riverbed. The locals never doubted that this skeleton belonged to a titan or hero, but they couldn't agree on which hero. In order to settle this matter, they consulted the oracle of Claros, who informed them that the bones belonged to Orontes, the mythical giant hero of India. Pausanias recorded multiple discoveries of giant skeletons. When we think of ancient Rome and ancient Greece, it's never in consideration of paleontology. Very few of us have wondered what the ancient Greeks and Romans thought when they discovered mammoth, mastodon, or even dinosaur fossils. It's true that most Romans and Greeks explained these bones through mythology and the existence of giants in the past. But was this the belief of all Romans and Greeks? After Pausanias listened to the locals argue over the true identity of the discovered bones, and after listening to the oracle declare that there were the remains of a giant, Pausanias came up with his own conclusions. In his own mind, Pausanias decided these bones belonged to genuine mortal creatures that lived deep into the past, and were not the remains of giants or heroes. And it turns out he wasn't wrong. We know today that Tegea lies on a prehistoric lake basin, and modern paleontologists have discovered that the area is rich in mastodon and mammoth fossils. But this leads one to wonder, was Pausanias a singular genius in the ancient world, or were there others that thought like him? It turns out Pausanias wasn't the only ancient scientist. Hundreds of years before him lived Theophrastus from 371 BCE to 287. Considered a botanist, mineralogist, and paleontologist, Theophrastus succeeded the one and only Aristotle as head scholar of the Peripatetic school. His surviving works include Inquiry into Plants, On the Causes of Plants, and On Stones. One of his publications that didn't survive, but is referenced in other surviving publications, is On Petrifications, which can also be translated into On Fossilization. The work of Theophrastus and Pausanias shows us that the Greek and Roman scientists understood the origins of discovered skeletons. When you think about it, it's not so different from modern times, where you have religious or mythological beliefs coexisting with scientific explanation. But if you still doubt the existence of scientific logic in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, let me introduce you to Lucretius. Lucretius was a 1st century BCE philosopher, naturalist, and poet. He wrote a 7,000-line poem entitled The Nature of Things, which covers science and philosophy. In one section of this poem, he eerily describes what we would recognize as evolution by natural selection. Quote, "For time changes the nature of the whole world, and one phase must be succeeded by the next. There is no thing that stays the same. Everything flows. Nature makes everything alter, for as one thing grows feeble with old age and starts to falter, another strengthens, emerging from obscurity. So age, therefore, changes the nature of the whole world. Then many kinds of creatures must have vanished with no trace, because they could not reproduce or hammer out their race. For any beast you look upon that drinks life-giving air has either wits or bravery or fleetness of foot to spare, ensuring its survival from its genesis to now." End quote. As I said in my last video, many myths contain kernels of truth. But in this case, the myths likely aren't memories of past encounters with real giants, titans, and heroes, or encounters with archaic hominin species, and instead were based off the encounters with mastodon, mammoth, and dinosaur bones. But if you still have your doubts, Paleoanthropologist Lee Berger recently released a video on YouTube showing why it is highly unlikely that any species in the human lineage was ever taller than the tallest modern human today. I'll link to Berger's video in the description below.